Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. It's been a few weeks since I made, a personal channel video because we actually had my cousin Amy, who's one of my best friends in the world, was here for a week, which was awesome. And then we had a week off. And now this week my father-in-law is here, which is also awesome. But I just kind of feel like, I always feel awkward filming when I have people in town because I want to be respectful of them and just like, hopefully, just like create a space where they can feel relaxed and enjoy themselves. And I never want anyone to feel like they have to be on. So it's just kind of fallen on the back burner, but they're leaving for Home Depot. And I have 37 minutes until I have an appointment with the rest of the girls on the Wolfer & Company team. So I figured I would spend the first 7 minutes of this video putting a obscene amount of dry shampoo in my hair and giving you updates. Why did I don't know if I can take myself seriously. Put this up here for now. Why not just do a fun little get ready with me using not non-toxic stuff. I snapped when Amy was here and I was like, I just need to go out and buy different foundations. I just need to try some different stuff. I need to switch it up. I love doing my makeup so very much, and I felt like I was really trapping myself into making sure everything I was putting on my face was completely non-toxic, and I just kind of decided, you know what, I'm gonna live a little, and instead of binge eating chips fried in canola oil, I'm gonna get some toxic makeup. Just, you know, live my life. I will say though, I'm starting to see a little bit of breakouts happening since I made the switch. I didn't make the switch officially. I've still got Beauty Care Naturals. We're still loving it. But my skin is not exactly thrilled. But my heart is, because my makeup looks bomb-ish. I'm still figuring out foundations. So I'm using the e.l.f. Hydrating Face Primer. We're totally out of focus. There she is. Love the way this feels. Totally clogging my pores, but makes my makeup look like a dream. So basically, teensy bit of a story time for you. There is a chance that we may not be able to keep the horses. A small chance. I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna. So a couple weeks ago, we get a notice from the city that we live in saying that our fencing isn't right, we haven't given the animals enough room, and it has to be behind the front setback, I think was the term that they used. Like any fencing has to be behind that. And that no fencing in front of the front setback can be higher than 30 inches. I took to Instagram and kind of ranted about this the other day, so if you saw that, this is gonna be a double dip of the same content, okay? Because there's nothing else interesting going on in my life, but this is also kind of a big deal. Oh, now I'm going in with L'Oreal Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation. I do love this. Is this the one that's water-based though? No, it's not, okay. Because I use a silicone-based primer, silicone-based. The notification says, hey, everything is wrong with your fencing. It can't be within 200 feet of another property. It can't be over 30 inches high. It has to be behind your front setback. And we're like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And what do they mean by 30 inches? Like, we can't keep any of our animals, not even our dogs, not our chickens, nothing can stay behind 30 inches. Like, our goats can literally, we have a dining room table in their barn area that they jump up on for funsies. For those who don't know, our dining room table is 30 inches tall, typically. So we get this notice, and naturally, my husband, being the one that he is, goes into full-blown panic mode, and is like, we're gonna have to get rid of the horses. This is just what's gonna happen. We have now lost the horses. We may not be able to keep the goats, and that's his oneness. And of course, I'm like slightly panicked, but not as panicked. Babe, I love you. But we all know you go there. He does the measurements on all of our animal enclosures that cannot be within 200 feet of our neighbor's property. Our goat and chicken barn is. Our horses we thought were fine. They were not. But we couldn't move them anywhere else on the property. Even though we have 2¼ acres, there is no other spot for them to go without getting within 200 feet of someone else. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. Okay. Can't be higher than 30 inches, has to be behind the front setback. We don't know what that means. Has to be 200 feet or more away from a neighboring property. And they said you can't use electric fencing. And we're like, okay. Didn't know a lot of this, but we look at all our neighbors and we're like, they have 4-foot tall fencing right at the front of their property. Like all along this road, right at the front of the property. Why can't we have that? So Elias starts to try to contact the code enforcement, and it's taking forever to connect with them. And we're like, this is okay. The notice said we have 10 days. This was right when we had the freeze a couple weeks ago. And we're kind of starting to panic, like, what if we don't get to get this resolved within the 10 days? What's gonna happen? Are we gonna be fined? It didn't say any sort of legal ramifications, so he's calling once a day, once every other day, not really hearing back. So we're like, okay, we're just gonna ask for forgiveness instead of permission, because we don't know how to make any of these changes. We don't know what half of this stuff means, so we're just gonna have to wait to hear from them. We do finally get a call back. There is one gal that works in the, I might even focus school. There's one gal that works in the code enforcement, like basically that does all of this for the entire city. I guess I should call it a town. There's only like 10,000 people here. But it's one gal that does all of it. And she's like, hey, thank you so much for being patient. We really appreciate it. Because that was Elias's request, was, hey, can you come out and show us some of this stuff and like walk it with us, because we want to be accommodating. We don't want to ruffle feathers. We just want to make sure we're doing what we need to do, but we also would love to keep these animals. That's too yellow for me. Oops. She agrees. Takes her another week and a half or so to be able to come out here. She also says that, hey, I'm gonna have to bring animal control to verify that the animals are all in a decent condition, and he can tell you how much space they need to have. Because they were saying, again, 600, I may not have said this, part of the letter was that you needed to have 600 square feet per livestock animal. And even though we have Nigerian dwarves that technically only need 250 feet, that's all they included in the letter. So we're out there doing calculations, and we're like, well, I mean, we think it's okay. This is the Ulta Beauty Too Cheeky cream blush. I've really been loving this cream blush moment for a minute. It makes me feel like the actual blush sticks better. Maybe I'm crazy. That's a fun little color, huh? Oh man, I did not wait for everything to settle before I just started plopping layers on. I'm gonna have creasy eyelids today. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to makeup. They arrive a couple days ago. They're super nice. They are so nice. This woman, the code enforcer, has now literally thanked my husband multiple times for how kind he's been and how patient he's been, because, you know, it is just her, and so sometimes it takes her a while to get to these things, and we're like, no, it's fine. We will wait. We will discuss. You just let us know what we need to do. And they both are like, okay, so here's the deal. Because your property is less than 5 acres, you can't have a fence above 30 inches in front of your house. And we're like, what? Because it's a smaller size, our fence can't go higher than a dining room table? And they're like, yeah, it's just, that's the code, that's the rules, we didn't make it. In fact, the animal enforcement guy was like, or the animal control guy said, you know, I've been here doing this for 11 and a half years. That's been the policy since before I started. So, you know, you can take this to planning and zoning and talk to them about it and ask for a variance for your property. But as it stands, the rules say you can't have anything in front of your house higher than 30 inches. And we're like, so we have to either shove all the animals behind our property, which would then put them within 200 feet of other houses, or we need to go request a variance to be allowed to have this in front. And both of them admitted, they're like, yeah, this is such a, like, you can't control where your house is. You can't control it. If it was up further, then you could have all of this fencing behind you, but you can't have higher fencing in front of your house. Oh, and I did the Hoola Quickie Contour Stick for just a little contour. I kind of don't really go hard on that anymore because I want my face to look natural in person. When I'm filming, I'll go a little harder with some of this, but not today. Now, there is absolutely no way for us to have known that without looking through all of the code or city ordinances, there's no way for us to have known that we weren't allowed to have fencing that tall in front of our property. Oh, battery change. Now I'm gonna go in with my e.l.f. blush palette that's probably expired with this nice bright red. This stuff is so pigmented. Just like one tap, watch. It's so much. But I love blush a whole lot. And this whole time, both of these people who work for the city that we live in, both of them are so kind. They're so kind. But even the animal control guy, he's like, I don't care about, you know, your goats are fine, your horses are fine. He's like, I can tell they're malnourished a little bit and they need to be doing a little bit better. But like, obviously if you just rescued them, you're doing exactly what you need to be doing. You're feeding them exactly what you need to be feeding them. So it was less of a, It wasn't the condition of the horses, but both of them were like, it's just not fair. You can't control where your house is. You can't control that it's so far back, but the rules are the rules. And then they revealed that the complaint was that the horses were too close to someone's house. And we're like, how? How are they too close to someone's house? Because we did the measurements and it's nowhere near that neighbor, or that neighbor. It's all further than 200 feet. So how are they too close? And the guy goes, my guess is it's because the house across the highway. And we're like, you have to, there is a highway with a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit between our house and their house. And still, for some reason, there has to be 200 feet between us. They didn't share who the complaint was from, but they did say that it could be from anyone across the street in the track home neighborhood, because it's a nicer neighborhood. It's a little bit more posh, and then we moved in and kind of, you know, rednecked up the front of our property, and maybe they didn't want to keep looking at that. I don't know. Maybe they don't like looking at skinny horses every day, which that's a sad life to lead. I mean, no one wants to look at skinny horses, but like, come on, they're getting fatter. So they measure from the front of the enclosure to the house across the street, and it is 37 feet too close. Animal control guy goes, you know what? As long as you move that corner back, just so you can abide by that 37-foot difference, just that one corner that's too close, my job here is done. Everything else you're doing is fine. I don't care what fencing material you have. I don't care about your goats. I don't care about your chickens. Nothing. You do you. The only thing you have to do is you have to move it so it's officially 200 feet away from this home. It's just like the ridiculousness of some of these rules. But everyone else, if they have a slightly larger property, the new rule is going to be if you have 3 acres. What? How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? And he so sweetly gives us a generous amount of time to fix it. Okay, I saw this look that someone did on TikTok recently, because that's where everything comes from these days, where she took some brown eyeliner, lined her upper lash line, and then took a very thin brush like this, super thin, and smudged it out and then got it up into the crease. And her eyeshadow crease looked so bomb that I've tried it a couple times and I'm like kind of obsessed with it. But I can't talk and do eyeliner at the same time. I'm not a crazy person. And because I'm about to smudge it out, it doesn't need to be perfect. Let's see. So I'm just gonna smudge here all along the lash line and really smoke it up, and then take whatever's on my brush and press it into that crease. Again, doesn't need to be perfect. We're just like kind of setting a foundation right now. So here we have it nice and smoked out. Here we still have it pretty harsh. Ah, I just love this. I love this so much. All right, so there we have both eyes done. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because that's what I keep telling myself, because I'm about to go in and add a little more flav. I got 15 minutes. Okay, I would show you this color, but the palette's broken. Or one of the colors is broken. It's that one right there. It's gonna go straight over the eyeliner crease situation with this. And a nice big fluffy blending brush, basically. Both of these people are in agreement with us. It's silly. The rules are the rules. They don't exactly necessarily agree or know the reason behind these rules. There was no reasoning whatsoever. It was just, hey, this can't be the way that it is. However, you can petition the planning and zoning for a variance. So basically we went through like a little jaunt where we thought we could say like the back of the house was the front of our house, because that door is bigger. That's where all the deliveries are dropped off. Like our driveway doesn't even connect to our front door. It only connects to the back door. So the gal that works for the city actually went to her boss and she's like, hey, can we change it so their front door is their back door and their back door is their front door, and then the rules don't apply? Like literally this is the kind of stuff that they were suggesting. These super goofy workarounds, but we're like, hey, we will do whatever we can to make sure that we're not losing our horses, because, you know, we love them so much, or that we have to put the goats and the chickens all behind our house. Like, that's just crazy. Well, maybe not them. I think it would just be the horses would have to move. Like, they're talking about flipping the direction of our house. So, and that would abide by the rules. Because, all right, if we had turned it around, then if that's the backyard, then we're allowed to have larger fences back there. It's just so silly. And they're telling us, you know, take a bunch of pictures. So when you go to planning and zoning, have your argument prepared, be respectful, be kind. They're literally telling us how to like win over this situation as best as possible, which we totally appreciate. So we get pumped. They leave. I mean, they spent an hour and a half here with us. We were totally jabbering it up and hanging out and talking shop, and they asked why we moved here. And so, you know, we hung out with them for a decent amount of time, and we're like, hey, we're hopeful maybe the whole house flipping situation will count. Doesn't count. She went to her boss. Her boss is like, I wish, but unfortunately, the front of your house is the part that's facing the road. And we're like, well, I mean, I guess that makes sense. So we can't, like, on technicality say, no, that's not the front, because it's literally facing the street. And then she proceeds to tell us that we probably can't, that we have to move the horses to the side of the property, and then we can petition for a variance to be within 200 feet of that neighbor right there. And we're like, but you told us we could petition for a variance for them out front. This is probably the most chaotic story time I've ever told. If you're still here, God bless you. So then she started pitching some suggestions for alternatives. She said, 1, you could buy 3/4 of an acre from a property next to you. I don't know any of them that are just gonna sell off 3/4 of an acre. Our next door neighbor did attempt to sell his property. Oh, which, by the way, he put up an 8-foot tall privacy fence between our property and his property. That probably cost him a lot of money, and we think it's because he didn't like how our property looked. We wonder if he might have been the one to call about the horses, but we don't know. So he puts up this giant fence, total tangent, and he can't have that there because it's more than 30 inches in front of his property. So because someone called and complained about the horses, then it's caused a domino effect of now they can't have that big old fence. And it doesn't sound like they're happy about that, according to the code enforcer girl. So that was her suggestion, buy property off someone else, which they try to sell theirs for like over $500,000. They're probably not gonna sell us 3/4 of an acre for anything reasonable that we could pay. There is a person who lives behind us who did have their property for sale for a while, from what we understand from the neighbors. It's an elderly woman that's living alone, so there is, she doesn't need all the property, she doesn't use it for anything, so there's a chance that we could just like buy a part of her backyard. But we'd have to buy 3/4 of an acre to change how we wanted to do our fencing. All of a sudden we could then do whatever fencing we want in front of our house if we just had a little bit larger of a property. Again, no explanation for that. She then says, or you can put your house on the front of the property, and then you can do whatever you want behind it. What is happening? So we move our house, or, you know, and then my husband was like, well, what if we put, you know, my wife needs to do some recording for what she does. What if we had that up next to the road? Then can we do anything, you know, behind that? She's like, yeah, if you brought in an additional housing unit, I think it's called an ADU, additional dwelling unit, then yeah, you could have that at the front of the property. And I told my husband, like, I can't record at the front of the property. Like, I appreciate you trying to get creative here, but I can't record at the front of the property. That's so loud. I can't record as is, set this far back sometimes because the semis are so loud. So I couldn't imagine being right next to it. And he's like, well, what if we turned it to an Airbnb? I'm like, well, that'd be a pretty miserable spot to sleep if you're just like right next to the highway. Although I guess it's just as close to all the other houses. I digress. All to say that in order to have the fencing that we want, in order to have the horses where we want them, etc., we would have to spend who knows how much money to make our property bigger or add an additional dwelling unit. And then we could just do whatever we wanted fencing wise. Not whatever we wanted, but we could have it at whatever height. All right, that's a pretty good stopping point. I'm gonna blend this out something a little bit lighter. Again, going in with a palette that I can't lift up. It's the Naked Basics palette, like the travel size, and that this one's the color Naked 2. Gonna blend over the top of that with like the floofiest brush of all time. My blush looks so intense in this lighting. There we go. That seems okay. I'll get the job done. How much time do I have? 9 minutes. All right, I could do this. If I wanted to, I could line the waterline. I can't take my face seriously with my blush. This is intense. Because it feels like that's all I'm seeing when I look up into the viewfinder. I'm like, blush! I also didn't put bronzer on top of the contour. If I wanted to, I could line the waterline for a much smokier look, but this is, I think it's pretty subtle and well blended for someone who doesn't know what they're doing but likes doing it anyways. So that's where we're at with the property fencing situation. For the want of a nail, a horse was lost. That's all I'm like, just, Okay, so I'm gonna kick off with my Beauty Care Naturals. I switch back and forth like crazy. Oh, I don't even know where my, oh, there's, because it's so cold here right now. It's like 28 degrees, but it feels like 18. So I'm gonna tuck my mascara into the crook of my leg to get it warmed up. Does anyone else do that? So next steps. We are a little confused about what we can request a variance for, because when the code gal was here, she said we could request a variance to keep them out front. On the phone earlier today, she told Elias we can request a variance to keep them to the side. So we don't know if we're gonna fight to have larger fencing in front of our property, or if we're gonna fight to have the horses within 200 feet of someone else's property. Those are our two options. That sounds like she's presented to us. Or, you know, just like create a new house. Or convince one of our neighbors to sell us 3/4 of an acre for hopefully a reasonable amount. If none of those things work out, we will have to come up with a solution somehow. I don't know. I just want to do whatever we can to make sure we are not losing these sweet horses, because that would suck. Be like, here kids, Merry Christmas. Oh, just kidding. We're not allowed to do anything because our property is just big enough to have fun on, but not big enough to have fun on. I did not intend for this to go so long. Okay. Oh, I should start. I am chaotic. Yeah. I should put some chapstick on. Hopefully my lips are less crusty by the time I get to color. And now I'm just gonna go in with my mascara that has hopefully been thawed out by my thunder thighs. Not really. Okay. Oh dear. So I thought I'd be able to get 2 coats in of mascara, but that's not happening because I've literally wasted this entire time just yammering on. So we're sticking with 1 coat just so I can make it to my meeting on time. Ish. I'm still gonna nuke my coffee beforehand, let's be honest. So next up, we are talking while applying lip liner. Just a little overlining. My lips are tiny. Ah, love this color combo. This is Lolita by Kat Von D. And then this is Maybelline Color Sensational and the color Totally Toffee 115. Next steps, we are getting the variance paperwork from the code enforcer inspector lady. We are going to make a petition to see if we can change or get a variance, a special request for just our property so we can have fencing further in front of our home. If that does not work out, I think it's probably gonna make more sense to try to get an additional dwelling unit than it is to buy property off of a neighbor. I don't think that one's gonna sell us property because of the price point that they'd probably want for it, and that's not something we could afford, and I don't even know if that's possible. I don't even know if we could afford something like that. So I would think that the additional dwelling unit would make the most sense, and then I would just turn it into like a craft studio. Maybe we soundproof the walls or something. I don't know how that's gonna work. So if you could keep us in your thoughts and prayers as we kind of go forward with this, of course I'm gonna keep you guys updated with the small town drama of fence height and animal locations. So that's all we have for this week's video, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the tea, the drama. It's not even that dramatic. It's just weird. And until next week, bye, guys.